Welcome to a world of darkness. Before we begin, subscribe and summon your courage to like the video. Brace yourselves for a tale that will chill you to the core. Let's descend into the darkness together. As the sun sets on our small town, whispers of a mysterious illness begin to spread like wildfire. Reports of strange symptoms and unexplained deaths grip the community in fear, signaling the beginning of a nightmare we never saw coming. I find myself in the bustling chaos of the hospital ward, where the sick and dying are brought in by the dozens. The air is heavy with the stench of decay, and the sound of desperate moans echoes through the sterile corridors, filling me with a sense of dread. After days of uncertainty, I receive a terrifying diagnosis. Our town is in the grip of a parasitic plague, a disease that feeds on the very essence of its victims, leaving nothing but death and devastation in its wake. Armed with the knowledge of our grim fate, I join forces with a ragtag group of survivors to search for a cure. We scour the town for clues, racing against time as the parasitic plague continues to spread its tendrils of terror. As we venture deeper into the heart of the infested town, we encounter horrors beyond our darkest nightmares. Twisted creatures lurk in the shadows, their grotesque forms a chilling reminder of the true nature of the parasite that plagues us. With each passing day, the toll of the parasitic plague grows heavier, claiming the lives of friends and loved ones without mercy. We make sacrifices along the way, forced to confront the harsh reality of our desperate fight for survival. As the parasitic plague spreads unabated, we race against time to find a cure before it's too late. Every moment brings us closer to the brink of extinction, and the weight of our mission hangs heavy upon our shoulders. In our darkest hour, we uncover the truth behind the parasitic plague, a sinister experiment gone awry, unleashed upon an unsuspecting populace with devastating consequences. But as we delve deeper into the shadows, we realize that the nightmare is far from over. Armed with newfound knowledge and a fierce determination to survive, we confront the source of the parasitic plague in a climactic showdown. Blood is shed, sacrifices are made, and the fate of our town hangs in the balance as we prepare for the ultimate battle against the forces of darkness. Just when we think victory is within our grasp, a shocking twist of fate turns the tide of the battle. The true mastermind behind the parasitic plague is revealed, sending shockwaves of horror rippling through our ranks. In the aftermath of the final battle, we emerge battered and bruised but victorious. The parasitic plague is contained, and our town is saved from the brink of destruction. But as we mourn the loss of those who fell in the fight, we know that the scars of our ordeal will never fully heal. As life slowly returns to normal in our once-infested town, we are haunted by the lingering shadows of our ordeal. The memories of the parasitic plague will forever linger in our minds, a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that lurks just beyond the veil of reality. Though the parasitic plague may have been vanquished, its legacy lives on in the hearts and minds of those who survived. We may have won the battle, but the war against the darkness is far from over, and only time will tell what horrors lie ahead. As the bitter winds howled across the barren landscape of the Arctic, our research team ventured forth, driven by the promise of discovery. We journeyed deeper into the frozen wasteland, our breath hanging in the frigid air, until we stumbled upon a peculiar anomaly hidden beneath layers of ice and snow. Intrigued, we set up camp nearby, eager to unearth the secrets that lay buried within. The days blurred together as we toiled tirelessly, drilling through the thick ice to reach our enigmatic find. With each passing moment, a sense of foreboding crept over us, as if the very air around us held its breath in anticipation of what we would uncover. And then, with a final resounding crack, the ice gave way, revealing a sight that would haunt us for eternity. As the icy tendrils retreated, we gazed upon a scene straight from our darkest nightmares. Before us lay a massive, grotesque creature, its form twisted and contorted, as if frozen in the midst of agony. Its eyes, cold and lifeless, seemed to bore into our souls, filling us with a primal sense of dread. And yet, despite the horror that emanated from its very presence, a curiosity stirred within us, driving us to press on. With trembling hands, we began our examination of the ancient entity, unaware of the malevolent force we were about to unleash. As we probed its frozen form, a shiver ran down my spine, as if some primal instinct warned me of the danger that lurked within. And then, with a deafening roar, the creature stirred, its icy prison shattering as it surged to life, casting us into a world of terror and despair. With a thunderous crash, the creature emerged from its icy tomb, towering over us like a vengeful god of old. Its roars echoed across the desolate landscape, sending tremors through the very earth beneath our feet. We scrambled to flee, but it was futile. We were at the mercy of this ancient horror, trapped in its icy grasp. As the creature advanced, a sense of hopelessness washed over me, knowing that we were no match for its otherworldly power. It was then that I realized the true nature of our discovery, not a relic of a bygone era, but a living nightmare incarnate. And as its icy breath washed over me, I knew that our fate was sealed, destined to become mere footnotes in the annals of history. With each passing moment, the creature's influence grew stronger, its icy tendrils creeping into our minds and twisting our thoughts into madness. Hallucinations danced before my eyes, visions of unspeakable horror that threatened to consume me whole. I fought against the encroaching darkness, but it was a battle I could not win. As I gazed into the abyss of my own mind, I saw glimpses of a reality far more terrifying than anything I had ever known. Shadows writhed and twisted around me, whispering dark promises of power and glory in exchange for my soul. And as I teetered on the brink of sanity, I knew that there was no escape from the icy grip of the ancient horror that now held me captive. In a last desperate bid for survival, I rallied what remained of my shattered will and faced the creature head-on. With every ounce of strength I could muster, I hurled myself at the icy behemoth, determined to banish it back to the depths from whence it came. The air crackled with energy as our powers clashed, each blow reverberating through the frozen landscape. As the battle raged on, I could feel my resolve waning, the bitter cold seeping into my bones and sapping my strength. But I refused to yield, drawing upon the depths of my courage to stand firm against the onslaught. And then, with a final triumphant cry, I unleashed all of my pent-up fury upon the creature, shattering its icy form and sending it crumbling into oblivion. As the dust settled and the echoes of battle faded into silence, I stood amidst the wreckage of our once proud expedition, a solitary figure against the vast expanse of the Arctic wilderness. Though the creature had been vanquished, its legacy would live on in the nightmares of those who had witnessed its reign of terror. And as I gazed out into the icy abyss, I knew that our ordeal was far from over. For in the heart of the Arctic, ancient horrors lurked beneath the frozen surface, waiting to be awakened by the unsuspecting souls who dared to tread upon their domain. And though I had emerged victorious, I could not shake the feeling that our discovery was only the beginning of something far more sinister and terrifying than we could ever have imagined. The Arctic Anomaly had been unveiled, but at what cost? As I turned to leave the desolate landscape behind, I knew that the horrors we had witnessed would stay with me forever, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked just beneath the surface of our world. And though I prayed that no one else would suffer the same fate as we had, I feared that our actions had set into motion a chain of events that could spell doom for us all. As the icy winds howled around me, I vowed to keep the memory of our harrowing ordeal alive, lest the world forget the true nature of the Arctic Anomaly and the frozen terror that lay within. In the quaint town of Eldritch Hollow, the night was a canvas for the peculiar. My garden, a masterpiece of nocturnal blooms, was my sanctuary. Yet, as the clock tolled for midnight, a chill ran down my spine. The hedges, once my pride, now whispered secrets not meant for mortal ears. I tried to ignore them, focusing on the delicate petals of the moonflowers, but their voices grew louder, more insistent. They spoke of a presence in the garden, one that watched, waited, and hungered. I could feel its eyes upon me, a gaze as real as the shears in my trembling hand. The whispers spoke of a gardener, one who tended more than just plants. He walked the paths at midnight, they said, his footsteps silent, his intentions as dark as the soil he toiled. The next night, I found it, a flower unlike any other, nestled between the shadows. Its petals were the color of a deep wound, and it seemed to pulse with a life of its own. I reached out, drawn by a mix of fear and fascination, but as my fingers brushed the bloom, the garden around me shifted. The air grew thick, heavy with the scent of decay. The plants around me twisted into grotesque shapes, and the ground beneath my feet felt alive, writhing with unseen worms. I stumbled back, my heart racing, as the flower seemed to laugh, a sound like the rustling of dead leaves. It was then that I saw him, the midnight gardener. His eyes were hollow pits, his hands caked with the dirt of graves. He beckoned to me, and I knew that this garden was his domain, a place where life and death danced in the moonlight. I should have left, but curiosity rooted me to the spot. The midnight gardener spoke, his voice a whisper that echoed the hedges. He talked of a harvest, not of plants but of souls. My garden, he claimed, was a gateway, a place where the veil between worlds was thin. He offered me a choice: join him in his eternal task or become part of the garden myself. The flowers around me swayed as if in agreement, their blooms turning to face me, their petals opening like jaws. I ran, the laughter of the midnight gardener following me. I awoke in my bed, the morning sun streaming through the window. It had to be a dream, a nightmare, but the scent of that strange flower lingered, and I knew that the garden had changed, and with it, so had I. The day passed in a haze, the sunlight doing little to warm the chill that had settled in my bones. I avoided the garden, but its presence was always there, at the edge of my vision, a constant reminder of the night's terror. As dusk approached, I felt the pull, an invisible thread tugging me towards the garden. I resisted with all my might, but as the first stroke of midnight rang out, my resolve crumbled. I found myself standing once again among the whispering hedges, the moon casting long shadows on the ground. The midnight gardener was waiting. "Why do you resist?" he asked, his voice a mix of amusement and scorn. "The garden needs you. It is a part of you now." I wanted to scream, to run, but the plants around me moved of their own accord, vines curling around my legs, holding me in place. The garden was alive, and I was its prisoner. The midnight gardener showed me the secrets of the garden, the plants that thrived on darkness and the flowers that bloomed with the souls of the lost. He taught me how to tend to them, how to feed them with the essence of life itself. I learned of the garden's history, of the countless gardeners who had come before me, each one succumbing to the garden's seductive power. I was just the latest in a long line, and in time, I too would become nothing more than a whisper in the hedges. But there was a part of me that rebelled, a spark of hope that refused to be extinguished. I clung to it, even as the midnight gardener's lessons continued, even as the garden grew more grotesque and beautiful by the night. It was on the 7th night that I discovered the truth. The midnight gardener was not a keeper of the garden. He was its slave, bound to its will just as I was. The real power lay in the heart of the garden, in the ancient tree that stood at its center. The tree was the source of the whispers, the keeper of souls. It was old, older than the town itself, and its roots ran deep, entwined with the very fabric of the world. I knew then what I had to do. I had to destroy the tree, to free myself and the souls trapped within the garden. It was a daunting task, but the spark of hope within me flared into a flame. The night was silent as I approached the ancient tree, its bark gnarled like the furrowed brows of lost souls. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices begging for release. I could feel the weight of their despair, and it fueled my determination. Armed with nothing but my shears and the burning need for freedom, I faced the heart of the garden. The tree seemed to sense my intent, its branches swaying menacingly. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, the voices in my head screaming for me to stop, but I pushed on. With each snip of the shears, the tree bled a black sap that hissed upon touching the ground. The midnight gardener appeared, his form flickering like a shadow in the moonlight. "You cannot destroy what has always been," he warned, but I ignored him, cutting deeper into the tree's flesh. As the final cut was made, a blinding light erupted from the tree, enveloping the garden in its radiance. The voices in the whispers turned to sighs of relief, and one by one they fell silent. The garden began to wither, its once vibrant life force ebbing away. The midnight gardener's form dissipated like mist, his curse lifted. I watched as the garden returned to its natural state, the monstrous plants receding into the earth, leaving behind the simple beauty of a garden at rest. I felt a peace I hadn't known in what seemed like an eternity. The souls were free, and so was I. The garden was no longer a prison of the night, but a sanctuary for the day. As the first rays of dawn crept over the horizon, I sat among the ruins of the garden, exhausted but victorious. The horrors of the night were gone, replaced by the promise of a new beginning. I knew the garden would never be the same, and neither would I. The Midnight Gardener was a part of its history, a dark chapter that had finally come to an end. But as I looked around at the fresh soil, I realized that this was an opportunity to start anew, to plant seeds of hope and watch them grow. The garden had been a place of darkness, but now it could be a place of life. And as the sun rose higher, I picked up my shears, ready to tend to the garden once more, this time in the light. As the final echoes of horror fade into the void and the darkness claims its dominion once more, remember to cling to the light by subscribing to our channel and invoking the dread upon the like button below. In the realm of nightmares, your support is our only salvation. Until we meet again, dear viewers, may you find solace in the fleeting moments of peace amidst the eternal night.